Good morning, you join me for another morning, or another episode of Modding with Steve. I'm sat outside at about 8 o'clock in the morning, so I don't disturb the household, and I'm going to try and go through with you how I've started construction on Puffing Billy. So let's do the old speed up. Click and play helps, and we'll see what I can say interesting today. So I'm using a model I've made of Aganoia and Stourbridge Lion that I made a while ago. I've already done the bulk of the hard work while I do it again, so I'm just going to reuse aspects of this model. It's quite similar actually to Puffing Billy, apart from the fact that this is a through boiler and Puffing Billy is a return flue boiler. Other than that, the cylinder layout and a lot of other parts of the engine are actually quite similar, so we're going to be using that today. If you can hear a bell, that's my cat jumping around. So I'm just going to start off with the boiler modelling here. I'm capturing various parts of the boiler to try and create that distinctive return flue aspect that Puffing Billy actually has. So at the moment I think I'm just re-establishing where the firebox is going to be and what end of the engine is going to have the domed bevel shape. So you can see here I'm just trying to see if I can bevel out one end. It's not going too well at the moment. It does get a bit better once I figure out what's going on to do with the angles, just smooth out some of the things. That blender has tried to interpolate, I think that's the right word, interpolate. Anyway, so I'm just trying to see if I can make it a much smoother gradient, because at the moment it looks more like a bowl than a dome. So I'm just trying to smooth that out at the moment. See if I can speed up a little bit for you. Using subdivide and smooth to try and get this smooth dome texture. Ooh, everything went green. And then I'm probably at the end going to just limit it down to only a few polygons, so it's not too bad. It's not going to be very easily editable, but that's not really the concern at this point. It's made. I could probably re-edit it if need be. Shrinking the boiler, it's a lot smaller, this boiler, than Aganoia. Aganoia had quite a large boiler, had a smoke box integrated into it. Move the firebox over to one side as it's a return flue boiler, so the tube has to go inside the boiler, turn around and come back. So the firebox is on one side, and the funnel actually was on the other, as you can see here. This is relevant in other engines such as the Trevithick engines, and also some of Hackworth's ones like Samurai for the Rainhill Trials. That was also a return flue boiler. I think that was actually one of the last return flue boilers actually, apart from some of Hackworth's slightly later engines, but the last really good return flue boiler is probably Samurai. I think Wilberforce actually might have been a return flue boiler a little bit later on. Making the little top of the chimney there that you can see on Puffing Billy, trying to emulate that in as little polygons as I can. At this point, I actually figure out that the boiler isn't parallel properly, and I am really confused for a little while as to why it's not parallel. So I just grab the boiler and I shrink it down to extrude the angle out, make it parallel with the lines in the background of Blender. Put it back in the right place. Oh. Make everything move it across. That means also that if you actually look at my model for Aganoia, it's not parallel, and that's probably why it doesn't all line up properly. You know, just trying to put the body in the right place over the wheels, get rid of some of this stuff. Here's me trying to attempt at putting the frames on Puffing Billy. That takes a little bit of work. I figure out that I need to actually build the mechanism that runs underneath Puffing Billy first before I can actually build the frames, because it makes more sense once you put the wheels and the cogs and the gears in. Just shift it over now so it's over the wheels, so I can see roughly where it is. Move the wheels back a bit so it's in line. The wheels end up being way too large, I have to shrink them down. Just importing some stuff here from my Trevithick models, the crank axles and gears. I have to remake what I've already made once. Here's a gear. Just going to fatten that out so it's visible on both sides. The Trevithick one's limited the poly count, so you can only see it really from one side. You can't really see the gears from the other side in Trevithick's model. Trying to put everything in situ as well, so when I import everything into Model Maker it's already in the right place. Don't have to do too much manual manoeuvring around of items in Model Maker, which is actually a good thing. There's a very loud pigeon nearby, so if you can hear that, that's good. And also you can probably hear my laptop taking off as well. The fans are getting quite excited. I'm playing a video back more than it should be. That's not too good for the laptop, it's a bit old now. So what I'm here doing is, in the image you can see there's a crank axle in the middle in between the two wheels. This is actually what is turned by the cylinders. It's not actually connected directly to the wheels. I hadn't quite figured that out yet. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to replicate that methodology, something like that. Trying to replicate that in the engine now, getting the gears in the right position and the right ratios. Not that it's totally noticeable underneath the engine, but these will turn, these will animate. The proper part is getting the crank axles to animate in the, I think it's the same direction as the wheels, but 0.5 times the speed. So there is actually a gear ratio going on underneath Puffin Billy, which means that it does go faster than the pistons. I would have thought for a colliery they would have done it the other way around, so like I'd have done it where speed isn't that important. 2 pumps of the piston equals 1 rotation of the wheel, so you get much more tractive effort out of it. But all the videos of the replica that I have seen running seem to have a 0.5% gear ratio, 0.5 times gear ratio, where the wheels turn 1.5 times for every 1 rotation of the crank axle, which actually probably makes it a little bit speedier. In Transport Fever I'll be able to balance it to be a bit faster. This might go at 15 miles an hour as opposed to the in real life limit of 4, but that won't be really doable in Transport Fever. 4 miles an hour, I think that'll actually lose you money, so I'm probably going to upgrade this to do 15 miles an hour, so it's just slightly shy of being ultra profitable, but it'll still be able to pull its own bespoke wagons at 15 miles an hour. So it's not going to be any less profitable than a horse and cart, really. It might do 15 to 18 miles an hour. Here's me trying to look at some footage here, because I can't figure out how the frames work. I'm trying to figure out if it's one frame underneath the engine, or if it's 2 separate frames either side. As you can see here, I'm trying to find any video that has an angle that is top down onto the frame, so I can see it. I think I get lucky with this video. Nope, not quite. Oh, here we go. Yeah, you can see that I figured out that it's actually 2 large planks of wood either side of the boiler, where the boiler is supported between. It makes sense actually, because you need space for the cogs and gears to actually whir around underneath the boiler. So lower the boiler down into the frames. I'm trying to find out how the boiler is actually suspended. It's actually held up by brackets, which are these things here that will just stretch into place. Not too fussed if they're not the exact correct shape with this. There's a few fair bits of artistic interpretation going on here, mainly to keep the polygon count as simple as possible. You're not going to be looking at this ultra close, I hope not anyway, when it's playing Transport Fever. It just needs to resemble what people think when they see Puffin Billy. If it was accurate to a T, I wouldn't be doing this as a hobby, I would be doing this as a job, and I would be doing it for a train simulator or something like that, and I'd be getting money for it. That's why I'm just doing it as ramshackle as possible. So here we go, I'm grabbing some cylinders from Aganoria. These took a while to make as well, manufacture, and also checking out the pipes of the blast pipe and the dome. So it is actually fed by a dome from the top of the boiler, and there is blast pipes, so I'm doing it right. Position the cylinders in roughly the right location. Just going to move them down and around just so they're above the wheels. Here's where I realised the wheels are way too big. If you look at the image on the right, the wheels just come up to the bottom of the pistons, so I'm just going to shrink those down a bit more, lower them, a bit too low, up a bit, there we go. Not that it matters, but it just helps for the visualisation of the model inside Blender, having everything somewhat the right size. It looks kind of odd from that angle. I think at this point I'm actually letting my cat out. There we go. Readjust the crank axles, and at this point is where I stopped doing the video, because my cat has decided to make its presence known up on my laptop, so I vanish outside. And that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll be back for part 2, which is probably putting all the details onto Puffin Billy at some point, and then part 3 will be animating it, and part 4 putting it in the game. I'm going to try and follow the entire process of putting this into Transport Fever, so you guys can have a look at how it's done on my end. If you want to do it differently, that's up to you, but a lot of people don't know how Transport Fever 2 modding works. There's not a lot of documentation for it, and I hope that these little videos can help you. So have a good day, don't go outside if you don't have to, and please don't lick people.